Good evening, fellas and ladies out there. Evolutionary, that word podcast coming your way once again. I love that intro music, by the way, that we have. So we have 5 awesome topics ahead today on this show. Stevesmi here, along with Rick as usual. How's it going, man?
Hey, what's up, Steve? Hey, guys, how you doing today?
So, guys, we're going to talk about some awesome steroid topics in this episode, and we're going to talk about a couple other topics as well. So let's get right into it. So the first one, it's a really good question. This guy is saying that his last cycle, he ran 100 milligrams a day of Anavar. He had tremendous results. He said he shredded up, he cut up, he got stronger in the gym, everything. So now he wants to run another cycle of Anavar, but he's saying now, wouldn't it make sense for me to go ahead and run 200 milligrams a day? If I got such great results on 100 milligrams a day, why not run 200 milligrams a day? Double the dosage. So let's talk about this a little bit. Is more better when it comes to steroids? So Rick, you've been around the forums a long time, and I know like there's been so much ups and downs over the years with guys running a lot of gear, guys cutting back, guys running gear. It's kind of like a cycle. It's a flow up and down. So what's your thoughts on this? Does more really translate to better results?
Well, in his particular case, he's going from doing, he said 100 mgs a day. That's about 700 mgs a week, bumping that all the way up to 1,400 mgs a week, doing 200 a day. So that's a big bump up. He's going to see some improvements, but it's not going to be twice as good, but it will definitely be better. There'll be a difference. In his situation, 200 mgs of any oral might be too much in my opinion. I would instead do maybe a total of 700 mgs if he really wants to do this much, right? I always advise to stay under 1,000 milligrams. But if you're really going to do this much, I really would suggest adding in an injectable, some test, some EQ, something along those lines. Not doing 200 mgs of an oral per day. In my opinion, that's overkill.
I've experimented with this over the years, guys. I've ran, steroids at low dosages, moderate dosages, high dosages, just to see what would happen. And then in my experience, when I've run steroids at high dosages, it's been the side effects. The side effects have actually been counterproductive to my results. It affects your organ health, liver, heart, kidneys, et cetera, et cetera. It increases inflammation in the body. It increases your chances of injuries in the gym. It decreases your quality of sleep. This is stuff that affects you. It can change your mood. It can change your aggression. It can change your attitude towards, your loved ones. So there comes a point where more is definitely counterproductive. And with Anavar, a dose for a male is 40 to 60 milligrams a day. If you can't get good results, cut up and make good gains at 40 to 60 milligrams a day of Anavar, then they're either your Anavar is shit quality, or you simply don't have your diet and training down. And that's a cliche, but it's true. You really don't need to. And I've talked to guys, even moderators on forums over the years, who have run 100, 120, 140 milligrams of Anavar a day. And yeah, I mean, these guys have been ripped and stuff, but really, like, their quality of gear has been shit. So that's why they're having to run so much. So we've gotten into that habit of hiking up the dosages to cover up, I think, the inferior gear that is floating out there. And that's one of the big ones right there. If you talk to a lot of the old timers, they'll say they never ran very much gear. And I believe them because, back in those days, gear was very, very high quality, pharmacy grade, very, very high quality. And now it's kind of like walking into a drugstore and picking up the drugstore brand of medication versus the name brand medication. They're both the same dosages. They're both the product they claim, but there's just, I don't know. It's just the quality is different, and it's hard to put your finger on it. Maybe it's kind of like the old adage of buying organic spinach versus conventional spinach. So that was the same spinach. You're getting a pound of spinach. It's both spinach, but one was grown a certain way, one was packaged a certain way, one was handled a certain way, where it's just more quality. What do you think, Rick?
Yeah, it's tough to really know how much you're really taking when you use on the ground lab products. It's hard to know because they're not tested for potency. So it's tough. But you know, I think, look, if you make yourself crazy if you think about that. If you've already made the decision to use underground lab stuff, just trust the label as much as you can. And if you're taking UG Anavar, 100 mgs a day is plenty. I wouldn't bump it up any more than that. Staying under a gram is really where I think everybody should be at, is trying to grow while staying under a gram. And yeah, I mean, it's, if you have to account for gear being fake, gear being bunk, I mean, there are tests out there that can tell you if you really have the compound and what you're taking, but it won't tell you how much. It won't tell you the potency. Yeah, it's tough to know. When you use underground lab stuff, it's tough to really know. Sometimes it'll be more, sometimes it can be less. Batches aren't tested for potency afterwards, so that's tough to know.
Yeah, it really is. It boils down to just trusting your source for sure. So our next topic, again, having to do with cycles, is about diet. They want to know, is a keto diet a good idea for my cycle? Now, I'm gonna let Rick jump into this, but first let me just say this, guys. Diet is so fucking important, okay, when it comes to fitness. Whether you're an endurance athlete, a bodybuilder, a power lifter, a weightlifter, just the guy who likes to go to the gym and lift, just the guy who wants to have abs. Diet is the number one thing. So deciding, hey, I'm going to change my diet when I go on steroids without like experimenting with different diets beforehand, that to me is really, really peculiar. It'd be like an astronaut going on the space shuttle without training for the space shuttle and knowing how it's going to react. I mean, he might, die on the way up from being shot up into space. So it doesn't really make sense to me on the surface, but I get it. Everybody is impatient these days. Everyone wants to hop on steroids. Nobody wants to like change their diet. It's too much work, whatever. So, but like, guys, you really have to know this shit beforehand. You got to understand. My second point before I let Rick jump in is keto diet. What the hell is a keto diet? Because if you look at social media, you'll see all kinds of opinions on what a keto diet is. But the whole basis behind a keto diet is to put you in ketosis, okay? And put your body in ketosis where your body's actually shedding, pissing out ketones. So the diets that are floating out there that claim to be ketogenic are actually not ketogenic in the first place. So really, a ketogenic diet by definition is a low carb, high fat, moderate protein diet. That's pretty much what it is on paper. And if done correctly, it is a healthy diet, yes. But the problem is what we've seen out there in social media is it's not portrayed as healthy, and it's very, very misleading because it doesn't put you in ketosis. You can't just eat steak and high fat stuff all day and go into ketosis. It doesn't, our bodies just simply do not work like that. So that out of the way, Rick, what's your perspective on this? There's different types of ways to approach this topic.
Well, first you got to try the diet natural, see how it works for you, see if you can tolerate it, see how your body feels. And then pretty much anything you can do natural and works for you, if you do it on steroids, it'll just work better. So it's really a no-brainer. Just try it out. Some people will do great on the ketogenic diet. Other people just don't. Other people can't. So you have to try it out, see how it works for you. Taking the steroids will just make whatever results you're looking for much better. And yeah, if you're trying to cut down, I've know a couple of guys that I've worked with that used the ketogenic diet for cutting down while on steroids and had good results. Absolutely no problem. But I do advise anybody try it first, natty, and see where it takes you, and go from there.
Yeah, you definitely want to make sure you get good quality olive oil. Make sure it has that California label on it, because a lot of olive oil out there isn't real pure olive oil. It's a loophole in the law that allows them to put other types of oils like hydrogenated oils and vegetable oils in the olive oil and sell it. So you want to make sure you get that California label. That is a good indicator that is 100% olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. Coconut oil, very, very important for a ketogenic diet. Should be cooking with coconut oil. That's what I cook with. So a lot of my diet is actually ketogenic.
Makes
Ketogenic.
everything taste great. Coconut oil makes everything taste so good.
Yeah, it's you got to. It's one of the first things. Like if you move out on your own and you buy all your kitchen supplies, that's like the number one thing that you should put in your kitchen to have is your good quality organic coconut oil from a legitimate health food store. But I mean, meat, poultry, eggs, fish, avocados. Those are all things you can eat on a ketogenic diet. Obviously, vegetables as well. And ketogenic people, they'll do is they'll avoid fruit, sugars, starchy stuff like breads, obviously pasta and all that stuff. So the basis behind the diet is good. I just don't like the way social media portrays the ketogenic diet and kind of misleads people into thinking that they are actually going into ketosis, because that's not what happens. If you do a water fast for 3 days, if you test yourself on the fourth day, you will be pissing out ketones. That is being in ketosis. But the ketogenic diet is a name, ketogenic. It's not that you're going to be pissing out ketones. So, Rick, what's your experience? Do you notice these social media guys who promote it, who don't even understand what it really is, or is it just me?
I see a lot of people out there with a lot of weird misconceptions about things. You
What do you
know,
think about those? What do you think about those keto supplements that you take and it puts you into keto? Because I think it's I don't think it makes sense to me. What's your opinion on that? Do you think those are just grifters trying to sell supplements?
last time I was at the Olympia last year, it's my first time seeing like ketone sports drinks. And I thought that was kind of interesting. Thought that was an interesting product. Like, you're supposed to let your body create its own ketones, but you know, supposedly some people think drinking them is going to make your body go into ketosis faster, and I haven't really seen anything that supports that. But that I thought that was pretty funny.
One social media guy, he got called out because he was, kind of pushing these supplements and stuff. So then one of, he got called out. He's like, they asked him like, well, why are you not pissing out ketones when you claim this stuff works? And his explanation was the ketone strips are not accurate. That's his explanation.
Oh
So
wow.
I thought that was pretty funny, considering diabetics depend on ketone strips. But the diet, it's the ketone strips not accurate, not his information and his supplements. So it's just another example, guys, of the fitness industry and the way people misled you. But the keto diet, guys, on paper, like as long as you're checking the ingredients of the foods you consume, you know, it's a good diet. Like I said, like a lot of my I don't count macros. I rather count micros. I preach that all the time on the forums, but if you were to look at my macros and I was to calculate it, my macros of fats would be 40, 50, even 60% on some days. So, I have a very high fat diet, and but the one aspect of the keto diet I don't agree with is fruit, because I think fruit is very, very important. We've been consuming fruit for 2 million years. It was the first thing we ate, even in religious books. Adam and Eve, the first thing they ate was an apple, fruit. So we've been eating apples from the beginning of time. So and I think fruit, very, very important minerals and vitamins. So in very high water content, which our bodies are made mostly of water. So that's one aspect of keto I don't agree with. So really my diet is mostly a keto diet, but I also incorporate fruit. So that's kind of the way I approach it. Anything else to add, Rick, before we move on?
I think we're good, man. Covered it.
Yep. Yeah. So, guys, next one is another good one too. Let's talk about kickstarting cycles. And, we hear a lot about kickstarting or finishing cycles and stuff. I think on the last couple of podcasts, we did talk about finishing cycles, and we are going to get into that a little later on, I think, as well. But let's talk about kickstarting cycles. What is it? And I think it was fascinating because the first time I started learning about steroids was over on the old EF board, and pretty much everybody who would recommend a cycle to me would always tell me, start your, if you're running a 10 or 12 week, testosterone 500 milligrams standard cookie cutter cycle, they'd always say, you know what, you got to kickstart the cycle with an oral. First 4 weeks, first 6 weeks with an oral. So that's kind of like where I kind of learn about kickstarting cycles. So Rick, I'll let you cut in here. Did that start happening in the 90s, or where people start kickstarting, or do you think people have been kickstarting from before that?
People have been kickstarting for a while now, and it's been going on for a minute. When I started taking steroids, it was the standard practice was to kickstart your cycle with an oral. I never did it because I should say I never did it at the start when I first started using, because I wanted to go with just injectable. Yeah. And then, over time, some cycles later on, I kickstarted them with an oral. And yeah, man, it works. It really, really does work. It helps you stay motivated too, man, because you get that big rush of progress in the first couple of weeks, the first 2, 3 weeks. And it's a real legitimate way to make a lot of progress very quickly. I mean, those orals really make you feel like you're on something, like you're on something. And yeah, it's, the injectables, you got to wait a while. You got to wait a couple of weeks for them to build up and to really start seeing results. But those orals, man, they're quick. And yeah, you just got to make sure to take your N2 guard, make sure you take your liver support. You're not messing yourself up. And yeah, I mean, kickstarting all the way. I'm not a believer in taking a bunch of different steroids. I think you can do with just maybe, a couple, two steroids is all you need for a good cycle. But if you really want to go that route and you want to try it out, it gets the cycle going a lot faster, and you get a lot stronger, a lot quicker. Your gains come on a lot faster, a lot earlier on in the cycle. It keeps you motivated. It keeps you tight. I mean, it's a good practice if you're really decided that's what you want to do.
So, guys, a rule of thumb whenever you want to know, obviously, when you first use steroids, whether it's a long ester injectable, oral, whatever, it hits your body right away. We all know that. But when does it peak? Okay. And the truth is that you can take the half-life of the steroid, multiply it by about 5, and that'll tell you when it peaks. So if you're running, so say testosterone E, testosterone CYP, between 8 and 12-day half-life, depending on what literature you read. So let's say 10-day half-life on those long ester testosterones, or primo ethanate, long esters. Multiply by 5, that's 50 days. It's going to take 50 days for it to reach peak levels. Yes, it works right when you inject it, but to peak levels, it's going to take 50 days. So the idea is you kickstart it with an oral, which kicks in a lot quicker, like Dianabol, 4 or 5 hour half-life. So it's going to kick in within a couple of days, really, really reach peak levels. So you'll feel that D-bol after a few days. It'll be in your system. So as that long ester is kind of building up before it reaches the peak, as you inject along, the more ejection frequency and over time, that D-bol is actually working. So that's the logic behind the kickstart. And it does make a lot of sense. So you can kickstart it with really any oral. This first cycle I ran was Sustanin 500. It was like 10 or 12-week cycle standard. And I kickstarted with some D-bol, 20 or 30 milligrams a day D-bol. Man, I felt it. 3-4 days later, wow, that shit, I was feeling it on my lips. It was amazing. So, just that's the strategy behind it, guys. It's just to kind of give your cycle a little head start until the esters kick in. And by the time the esters kick in, you can cut off the oral. So I got no problem, even for a cycle, with guys kickstarting their cycle. Just make sure you run your proper support supplements, the N2 guard, and run an AI if you're running something that aromatizes. That's it. I mean, it's as simple as that. All right, guys. So next topic, and I'm going to let Rick get on this first because he has some strong opinions on it. This guy wants to know, he says, my IFBB Pro buddy says to switch compounds during cycle because he says it enhances the cycle. Is this true? And what is the science behind it? So Rick, I'll let you take this one first.
Um, I don't think there's any science behind it at all. Um, I think when you switch compounds mid-cycle, if you use different compounds, your results are going to be, slightly different. Providing that you maintain the same diet and training program. If you just switch things up, your results are going to be slightly different. So you are going to see a bit of a change. Maybe you'll get a little bit puffier. Maybe you get a little bit drier, and maybe that change will give you the perception that things are somehow happening really differently. But I mean, your overall results are really mostly going to be dependent on your intensity and style of training and your diet. And switching the compounds up here and there. Maybe maybe if you were taking test and EQ, and then down the line you switch the EQ out and added, I don't know, Winstrol or Mastron or something like that, you might look a little bit tighter, yeah. But overall, your results may not your permanent results may not be that different had you switched out that one compound or not. So it's my opinion on it. I think just diet and training is really number one. And it's what's really going to lead to what your final result from that cycle is going to look like.
I think this is another example of listening to these IFBB pros and a buddy also. We see that a lot. People listen to a buddy at the gym. They listen to some pro they saw on Instagram or something. Guys, at the end of the day, they're them, you're you, okay? Comparing yourself to a pro who monetizes it, who's getting sponsors and stuff, who has this top 1% genetics, okay, makes absolutely no sense. It'd be like you going to a spelling bee against the top spellers in the world. It doesn't even make sense. They have a gift, okay, for this. So worrying about what they do makes no sense. And here's the bottom line on this. The reason that these pros switch compounds like that is due to flexibility. They use a lot of short esters. They want to be flexible because if things aren't going well ahead of their show, they want to be able to switch it out and have that ester clear out. So 5 times your ester, if it's a shorter ester, it's going to clear out a lot quicker. So that gives them the flexibility. That's why they run the propionates and the acetates and the shorter ester compounds, because they want to be flexible. They want to switch from running testosterone, EQ, Tren, switch it over to Mastron, Winstrol, Anavar, the dry compounds, for Proviron, etc. Because they want to get dry into their show. They want to peak at their show. But you, as a normal gym rat, you're not trying to peak on September 15th, the day of your show, where you have to go in front of judges in your underwear and pose. That's not what you're trying to do. You have a long-term approach, a year-round approach. You want to look good year-round. You want to, right? So why follow what these guys are doing who have to look good on a certain day of the year when you want to just look good every day? So don't worry about what your buddy does. Don't worry about what some pros do, because they're on a totally different program than you. And that's the number one problem I see in the fitness industry. And that's holding so many people back, is that they listen to these people. And then this shit gets copy, pasted, and parroted and regurgitated by people. And we see this all the time on forums. And it drives me crazy, because you see people posting shit on forums that they heard from some pro that has 0.01% of the best genetics in the world. It makes no sense. It's like me learning to throw a football from Tom Brady, okay? It doesn't make any sense, because I'm never going to be able to throw a football like Tom Brady. So why would I even worry about how Tom Brady throws a football? So it's just one of those situations, I think. That's where you get this switching the compounds, makes a difference and stuff. So that's my opinion on it, guys. But yeah, like Rick said, there really isn't any science behind it.
Well, first of all, let's all agree that there's a lot of guys with pro cards out there now because of all the different categories that have been added over the last few years. So there's a ton of guys out there now with IFBB Pro in their Instagram profiles. Most of these guys are genetically gifted, and I would say most, if not all of these guys, are paying a coach to help them with put their cycle together and help them, with their diet training and adjust and make adjustments to it. So um, you can't you can't do what the competitors do. Their whole system of training and cycling is completely different. So you gotta kind of do what's going to work for you, and it's going to keep you safe, and it's going to be more convenient for your lifestyle and for your goals. So agree, definitely.
All right, guys, our last topic. It's a very important one. It's a health oriented topic. And this is another one where, we see a lot of, this is becoming an epidemic. I mean, it's coffee and stimulant abuse from pre workouts. Um, it's to me, it's becoming an epidemic because it's legal for this to be sold over the counter and it's addictive. And when you combine those two things, it's a damn good business. Like like whoever started Starbucks was a genius because you're selling a product that's addictive to people and that people are going to have to keep coming back every day for. And I'll tell you, I date a lot of people my age and your age, Rick, are addicted to this shit. And I see this, like I've dated girls that literally they go crazy if they don't have caffeine. It just their mind just goes crazy and they turn into different people. And it's scary. It's no different than a crack addict in my mind. So the health ramifications behind being addicted to these stimulants, these pre-workouts, I see at the gas station these young guys, 20 years old, 25 years old, walking out of the gas station holding 3 Red Bulls or holding 3 Monster drinks. They're addicted, and they have to have this just to get through their day. And the 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 bad parts of it are really going to hammer you when it comes to sleep quality because you put a stimulant in your body. It's going to be in your body when you lay your head at night, and it's going to prevent you from going into a deep sleep, which is going to prevent you from repairing the muscle, which is going to prevent you from recovering properly. And that is going to be a problem because caffeine has a 6-hour half-life. Multiply that by 5. That's going to take you over 24 hours. So even if you drink caffeine in the morning, it's still going to be in your system when you put your head in the bed, even in small amounts. So Rick, we talked about this pre-show, and you talked about it. You got a little of addiction going. Tell us about that.
I love coffee. I love caffeine. I use it as a tool. Helps me focus. Look, steroids aren't any good for you. We're still doing them. I don't think caffeine is, in my opinion, any worse for you than taking, than injected testosterone is. It's a tool, and a lot of people get through their workday, get through their rough days just using caffeine. Um, it's one of those things where caffeine has been used by humanity for so long now. It's one of those addictions that you can maybe have your whole life and it not ruin you. I like caffeine. I like pre-workouts. I don't do pre-workouts to do cardio. I think that's not a good idea. But sometimes I'll train later in the day. I'm a little bit tired. A little pre-workout, man, it gets me right through that workout. I don't have a lot of trouble sleeping. I can take my pre-workout. I take N2KTS, and I can 4 hours later, 3 4 hours later, I'm ready to go to bed. So it doesn't really doesn't affect me as badly. But I understand what you're saying. I mean, ideally, you'd want to be addicted to nothing, and you'd want to, need nothing. But man, caffeine has helped humanity get through so much. A lot of stuff has been figured out, studied, and written on some caffeine nights. I'm sure by many humans. So I think, I'm
Do you
fine with it.
recommend though? Do you recommend as a regular coffee drinker at least cycling it?
I don't drink coffee on the weekends. Um, I use coffee mainly for work. It helps me focus, helps me stay on target, helps me study, right, do all things I need to do. But on the weekends, I like to just let my receptors kind of clear out, and I do feel a little bit tired, more tired on the weekends than I do Monday through Friday. It's obvious. But yeah, every weekend I clear out. It's what I do. Saturday and Sunday, no caffeine at all.
Yeah, I recommend guys who want to kind of because when you get older, it's going to turn into 3 cups, 4 cups, 5 cups, 6 cups. You're going to need more and more just to get that, you know, get through the day. So what you can do to prevent that is kind of cycle it. I like Rick's strategy, just cycle off on the weekend. A lot of guys will do like a 2 week off, 2 week on, 2 week off, 2 week on, stuff like that. That's a really good idea. I know a lot of older people, they have to drink like 8 cups of coffee a day just to get through it. And I mean, it's expensive. I mean, I don't know how much it costs at Starbucks. How much is one of those drinks at Starbucks cost? Like $8, 8 times 8 drinks. That's like $100 a day on coffee.
I drink a lot of coffee, so I make mines at home to just make it cheaper for myself. But if you buy it at the store, man, it can get expensive. It can get real expensive, and like you said, it is an addiction. One I always knew just from the literature and from experience, I always knew is you're addicted to caffeine. You just can't lie to yourself about it. There was one particular long weekend where I was out with my kid at a shopping center. I think it was like Monday afternoon. No coffee since Friday, and I didn't realize how dragged down I was feeling. But we walked by Starbucks, and I said, you know what? It's nighttime. I'm just gonna get a coffee. I'm just getting one. I got a black coffee, no sugar, no cream, cold. Started sipping on that thing, man. And once I was about a quarter of a way through it, just the feeling that came over me, I realized I'm like, holy shit, I'm hooked on this stuff. It felt so good. You have no idea. Just the caffeine hitting me after 3 days. And yeah, it made me realize like, all right, this is something I gotta be conscious of. This is something I'm doing, and I'm utilizing it as a tool, as a crutch to help me concentrate, to help me get more out of my day, I feel. So I have to be conscious that this is what's going on, and this is why I'm doing it. But yeah, man, the feeling was so good. And that day I realized like, all right, this is a drug that I'm addicted to now. This is kind of my reality today. It's caffeine. I'm, I'm part of the group now. Yeah.
See, I'm the opposite. Like if I drink just a couple sips of coffee, oh my god, like I won't be able to sleep the whole night because because I don't drink, I don't consume caffeine. Well, since I was like 8 years old, I basically made a pledge I would not consume caffeine, just based on like studying and stuff. And so if I just drink a little bit, like I used to play poker, and I used to have some, for exactly the reason you said, just to get my mind going for a poker game, because the best games in poker are at night. You're playing poker till 4 or 5 a.m. You're getting, that's when the fish are out there. You got to catch the fish. And so I drink some coffee, dude. I would not be able to sleep. Like the next day, I would just fucking be wired. I wouldn't be able to sleep. So yeah, it's so true. The more you drink it, the more less of effect it's gonna have on you, and then the less you drink it, the more effect it's gonna have. So if you want to reverse that, and you've been hooked on these pre-workouts and stuff, just take a break from them and kind of wean yourself down, and then you can go back up a little bit to kind of do it. So anything else to add, Rick, before we finish up?
Let's keep it going, man.
Yeah. All right, guys. Appreciate you guys listening in. Please send in your questions, and we will definitely ask them on the air. For Stevesmi and Rick, another episode of Evolutionary.org. Talk to you guys next week. Thanks for listening. Take care, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah. Have a good night, Steve. Have a good night, guys.